So I've compiled a list of some of the greatest comebacks in UFC history, and I'm going to be going through ranking each of these accordingly. I got 7 fights picked out here in total. Let's jump right into this. Starting at the number 7 spot, I got Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, numero uno. Dude, this was a pretty big deal at the time, man. Conor, obviously, featherweight champ, was moving up to challenge Rafael dos Anjos for the lightweight belt to become a double champ. RDA breaks his leg. In steps Nate Diaz on 11 days' notice. Gets kind of picked apart in the first round. Is getting picked apart in the second round. Conor, notoriously, ironically, he's the notorious one for having shit cardio. Okay? He slows down. Nate Diaz catches him on the feet. And then, as Brendan Schaub would say, he volume punches that motherfucker. Gets Conor really, really exhausted with all the body punches, with all the pressure and the volume. Conor shoots an ill-advised takedown. Obviously, Nate Diaz souffles him over, mounts him, is beating him up in the mount, ultimately secures the rear naked choke after being busted up in the first round. And this was brutal, man. This was brutal. Seriously, I was a big Conor fan at that time, and just seeing, kind of a past his prime Nate Diaz, who had previously fought for the belt against Benson Henderson years before that, come in after coming up. This guy came off like a 2-year layoff, beats Michael Johnson, and then fucking submits Conor McGregor off another long layoff. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. But, this one, out of all the ones on the list, in my opinion, is kind of like the least weighted, least big of a deal. I know Conor was a big star at this time, was undefeated in the UFC, but if you go back and watch that fight, Nate wasn't getting completely dominated on the feet by Conor. He was touching Conor up a lot. He wasn't getting really hurt by the shots. He did get stung a few times. Obviously, he got busted up pretty bad in that fight, but beyond that, in terms of the chaos of it, it wasn't super chaotic, but it was a big deal. So let's move on to number 6. I got Matt Hughes, Frank Trigg. You got to go back in the vault for this one. Long-ass time ago. Matt Hughes, Frank Trigg 2. Now, Frank Trigg, he was one of those guys who could match Hughes in the wrestling. So it was an interesting one because you're well, this guy can definitely give Hughes problems. And he kind of did in both fights before being finished by Hughes. And this one was even crazier in the second fight because he knees Hughes in the nuts. Hughes looks at the referee are you going to stop the action? Referee Mario Shitsaki, one of the worst referees ever, doesn't stop it, tells him to keep going. Frank Trigg proceeds to just start beating the shit out of Hughes from the top position on ground. Has him in a rear naked choke at one point. Somehow Hughes wiggles out of it, gets in on a double, picks, Frank Trigg up with his signature, double leg takedown, carries him across the cage to his corner, slams him down, proceeds to start beating the shit out of him on the ground, and then gets him in a rear naked choke and finishes him. Super ironic. They completely just, the 180 this fight went, and it was in a minute and a half period. Complete 180. Frank Trigg has him in the exact same position. Then Hughes has him in the exact same position and ultimately finishes the fight. Crazy, crazy one. Yeah, super old fight. Number 5. Paul Craig versus Magomed Ankalaev. Now, I wouldn't say Paul Craig was getting the absolute shit beat out of him, but Magomed Ankalaev was on the way to a 30-27 decision here. He was taking Paul Craig down left and right. Paul Craig did land a takedown of his own, but Magomed scrambled up pretty quick. He was just grappling him the whole fight. Landed good elbows, good strikes from ground and pound. On his way to a clear, 30-27. Dude, there was 12 seconds left in the round. Magomed Ankalaev is on top of him, raining down elbows, raining down punches, heavy strikes. Paul Craig, in Paul Craig fashion, dude, whips up that patented Paul Craig triangle. And there's 8 seconds left. Magomed Ankalaev taps. Crazy, kind of a bitch move by Ankalaev. But as we've seen, dude, you got if you can get Magomed Ankalaev in some deep shit, he kind of quits, bro. I'm sorry, he just does. You know, he was a champion. And this was just a huge win for Paul Craig because you look at that after this fight, Magomed Ankalaev went on a serious run, captured the belt, had a win over Pereira. But dude, Paul Craig is one of the best fuck up men ever. Like, he fucks up career trajectories of young contenders, man. He's done that time and time again. So, you know, definitely another patented Paul Craig performance there. Moving on to number 4. I got Derek Lewis, and he's another one of those guys, man. He's a fuck up guy. You know, because he was getting destroyed in this fight by Alexander Volkov. He was down 3 rounds easily. I mean, Volkov was piecing him up on the feet, landing really, really nasty combinations, taking him down, beating him up there. You know, it's midway through the 4th round. Lewis is just like gassed out of his mind, like was just basically standing there to be hit. And in true Derek Lewis fashion, man, manages to land that overhand right on the chin of Volkov, puts him down, finishes him off with some nasty ground and pound, and pulls it off, man. I mean, Volkov was on his way to a 30-27. There's a reason Derek Lewis is the all-time knockout leader in the UFC, though, man. He finds a way to get it done time and time again. He's still doing it today, dude. He's fucking up young contenders' careers. This man, like, legend. Absolute legend. Honestly, a shame, you know, that we got guys like Aspinall and Gone and Jones, you know, here, because, you know, if it weren't for those guys, I'd give Derek Lewis a shot to be heavyweight champ, but it's just not meant to be. But, you know, he is super entertaining. Moving on to number 3. Pat Barry, Czech Congo. Dude, this fight is about 38 seconds of pure chaos. So it starts midway through round 1. It's about 2 minutes, 50 seconds. Pat Barry, okay, so Pat Barry, right, because this is an old, you know, back in the vaults fight. Pat Barry's the guy on the right. Czech Congo is the guy on the left. He's a French dude. Pat Barry, midway through the round, cracks Czech Congo, drops him, is teeing off on him. Czech Congo gets back to his feet. Pat Barry drops him again. Seriously. Like, this was some wacky Looney Tunes type shit here. So that's what I got at my number 3 spot. Moving on to number 2. Okay, so this is Scott Smith versus Pete Sell. Scott Smith, guy here on the left. Pete Sell, guy here on the right. Now, Pete Sell, he was a Serra Longo guy, one of Matt Serra's good friends. I believe this was after the Ultimate Fighter, season 4, the comeback, where the winner got a title shot. Both these guys got eliminated. They matched him up on the Ultimate Fighter finale. Round 2, you know, it's kind of a gritty back and forth fight. Round 2, Pete Sell lands like one of the nastiest body. Pete Sell, having the natural fight instincts, rushes forward to, you know, finish Scott Smith off. As he's doing that, Scott Smith catches him with like a check hook, face plants him, lands a couple unanswered strikes. Ref calls the fight off. Dude, like, and then right after that, Scott Smith rolls over in a ball, you know, in agony, holding his ribs. Like, I don't know if he broke him. I can't remember. But he might have broken the ribs. And just to be able to, like, be crumpling into the cage and have a huge, jacked, probably on steroids, Pete Sell running at you full blast and knock him out as you're hunched over holding your ribs against the cage. Dude, undoubtedly, like, one of the craziest, like, split-second, like, instinct knockouts I've ever seen in my life. So that's what I got at the number 2 spot. Now, my number 1 spot, dude, like, this fight, I had to put it there just because, like, you had to be watching it live just to, like, really feel the pure shock, you know? You know, and like, the guy it was done on, the comeback, you know, the guy who had the comeback done to him, obviously was, like, one fight away from tying Anderson Silva's record. You know, he was pound for pound at the time. He was a minute away from retaining the title. Obviously, you know what I'm talking about. Look at me now. I put that shit out the fire, bro. Look at me now. The belt belongs to nobody. Dude, I swear. like, I was starting to tune out. This fight was so boring and one-sided. Like, from rounds 2, like, through almost the end of round 5, it was all Kamaru Usman with the wrestling, with the pace. Leon had a good first round, and then after that, it was just one-way traffic. I mean, dude, Kamaru was just completely dominating, and I mean, it was so bad. Like, after each round, Kamaru was like doing what he does, where he just stands there and stares you the fuck down. Like, what? Leon was completely depressed looking. He was like just defeated. His corner's yelling at him. His corner's fucking yelling at him like, "Pull that shit out the fire, bro. You're letting him bully your son." Like, dude, like I was starting to tune out. Like, I think I might have pulled out my phone a few times and been like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know what's next for Kamaru at this point. He's gonna tie Anderson Silva's all-time record. That would have been his 6th title defense." Dude, there's like 57 seconds left, and like that head kick happened so fast that it's like I just remember sitting there and like in pure shock and just like replaying that in my mind like 15 times, going, what happened? Like, it literally, it was like 1 second Kamaru's like, walking him down, on his way to another title defense, and then next second Leon's like marching around the octagon saying, "Look at me now, the belt belongs to nobody." It was just like, what the fuck just happened? It, like, truly, like, this is gonna be a hard one to top, dude, because like we don't see dominant champions lose like that very, very often in that fashion after dominating the entirety of the fight, minus round 1. So yeah, man, I got that at my number 1 spot, my number 1 greatest comeback of all time, just because of how late into the fight it was, how defeated Leon was. Let me know some of the fights you would potentially have as the greatest comebacks of all time, UFC history. How would you potentially rearrange my list here? Um, would you remove some of the fights off this list? Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe. Until next time.